Does addiction, anxiety, or depression run in your family? Worry management expert and author Denise Merrick is going to show us how stress can activate a genetic predisposition to develop a mental health disorder, which is absolutely fascinating. Denise, welcome back to the morning show. So good to see you. Let's start off with some statistics. 1 in 5 kids experience mental illness, which is alarming.
Yes, and 70% of people who develop a mental health illness will see those symptoms begin before the age of 18. And when we're talking about the common mental health disorders that we're seeing, it's anxiety disorder, depression, eating disorders, schizophrenia, just to name a few.
Yep.
Okay. One of those triggers can be stress and worry. So let's talk a bit more about that if we could.
Yes, one of the triggers is stress. First, to help you understand how that works, we've got to talk about the genetics. So there is a genetic component. So sometimes people have a more genetic vulnerability to developing a mental health disorder. So I'm going to get one of you to develop a mental health disorder right now through genetics by just picking a card. So just pick a card, any card, it's random.
I guess I'll pick this one.
Jeff, read what's on your card.
You have no genetic vulnerability to develop a mental health disorder.
Okay, that means you have not inherited this genetic vulnerability from either one of your parents. What does your card say?
You have a genetic vulnerability to develop a mental health disorder.
Yes, okay, so you, from one of your parents, from multiple genes, have developed the possibility that you could have a mental health disorder later on in your life. So what's in this glass is just oil, and this is going to represent the genetic predisposition. So if you can pour that into your glass with the blue line. Now the blue line represents a certain threshold. In order for this genetic predisposition or this vulnerability to be activated, you need to reach a certain threshold. Now, just because you have this genetic predisposition, it doesn't even mean you're going to get a mental illness or develop a mental illness. Something has to occur to bring it to that threshold. And what is that something? Stress. So now let's take a look at stress. You'll each choose some stressors, and on these cards are written some of the common stresses that children or even young adults can go through. So just take a card.
Do you want me to read mine?
Sure, read yours.
I'm in high school and just experienced a breakup, and my family is experiencing financial problems.
Oof, that is a big stressor. Jeff, what does yours say?
I've left home to attend university, and I'm having a hard time adapting to university life.
Equally tough, big stressor. So Jeff, go ahead and pour your water into the glass, and the water is representing the stress. So let's see what happens. Does it reach the threshold line? Whew, no, it doesn't.
Close, close.
It doesn't reach it. So while it's a very stressful time, a mental health disorder has not been triggered. So go ahead and pour your water in.
Okay, so
I have the stress. Oh, read your stress first. We did.
No, I did. It was about financial problems within the family, and I also just experienced a breakup.
Okay.
So very stressful.
Very stressful.
On many fronts. And I'm predisposed to mental health disorder.
So what we're seeing now is that the stress has combined with that genetic vulnerability, and it's reached the threshold. So that genetic vulnerability has turned into a mental health disorder. Now, here's the part that you want to understand is you can have a genetic tendency that's just there. It's just part of your genetic makeup. Nothing's happening. But then when you combine that stressor, that's when it can be developed. And what this is called in psychology, it's very fancy terms. Get ready for the fancy word. It's the Diathesis-Stress Model. And obviously, this is a very simplistic example, but it goes to show you what that stress can do. And if we think about what happened, and the numbers of mental health illness have risen since the pandemic, since 2019, what happened in the middle? COVID-19. And so that's why we're seeing now, you might be asking, well, why did my child develop a mental health disorder? They didn't have it earlier. Why is this showing up now? During very stressful times, that's when that predisposition can be activated.
All right, Denise, before we run out of time, let's talk about coping and some tools that maybe parents can use if they identify this in their children. How should they proceed?
Yeah, first of all, remember, stay calm in this moment. Realize that just because you have a family history doesn't mean your child will develop the associated disorder. But in the meantime, what you can do is teach your child some stress management techniques so that they can better cope with stress. And also talk with your children about their mental health. If you know that this could be something in your family, talk to them about it and talk about how are you feeling and get that conversation flowing. And bottom line, if you have any concerns at all, talk with your mental health care provider.
Because how you react to these situations is where this level will either rise or stay down. As a parent, it's how you respond to their stresses as well.
Yes, that's 100% true. And there's been a lot of studies that have shown that if you're raised by a calm parent, you're not going to have that activation.
Right.
Something else just to note very quickly is if you had less of a genetic predisposition, it would take more stress to reach that threshold line. And so if you had more of a predisposition, if you had less of a predisposition, it would take greater stress.
Right.
So it's a tricky little balance.
Sure. And identifying it is key.
Absolutely.
All right. Great stuff. Denise, thank you so much.
You're welcome.